Hello, everybody. This is Abby Esther. I have returning back to you guys to share some information. It has been quite a while for me, but the reason it's been quite a while for me is because I've been going through a process. I guess the Most High has been purifying me through the furnace of affliction. It has been quite an experience. And it's interesting because the last time I think I was on, I talked to you guys about 11:11. I was seeing it constantly. And I was just doing a significant amount of research on what is 11:11. And I was going through the Hebrew alphabet. I was going through all these different things. Um, and then I kind of hit a breaking point where things in my life just began to happen so quickly that I ended up where I'm at. So I'll share a few things. I'm going to start with what 11:11 really means in this day and time. And that doesn't take anything away from what, I shared before about what it means in the Hebrew or the Greek or, some of the scriptures where we see 11:11 in the Bible. But after having gone through some of the things that I've gone through, he shared some things with me. And so, and I've seen a lot of people. I honestly feel like if there's ever any video on YouTube or anywhere that's 11:11, I probably watched every single one of them. And after what I've experienced, I don't take anything away from anybody, but I know that what I have is from him. I know based on my own experiences, some things of which I'll share, that it absolutely means what we're about to talk about. And I actually heard a person who was a prior witch confirm it yesterday, which was like, oh, somebody else finally, they get it. And I think quite a few people that are working in the kingdom of darkness know exactly what 11:11 means. It's the children of light who don't know. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. And I'm just going to start by saying, hopefully you guys can see my screen, the real 11:11. So what does 11:11 mean? One of the first things that I noticed about 11:11, and I said this in my older video, is that if you look at 11:11 on a clock, one thing you'll notice, it's the only number that you can look at all the way across. That's the exact same on both sides. And that was something that, the Most High just kept impressing on my heart. I was like, what am I, like, I don't understand what I'm seeing, like what's going on. It's like, it's the only number. And my daughter was the one that said it. She goes, Mom, the one thing about 11:11, it's the same everywhere. Like it's the same on both sides. I said, yeah. And you would think again, well, 12:12, but it's not, because one way 12:12 is 1212. But if you read it the other way, it's 2121. And so that's my point. If you're looking at 1010, it's 1010. If you read it backwards, it's 0101. They're not perfectly aligned. 11:11 is perfectly aligned on both sides. And so it means quite a few different things, but I'm going to focus on this one thing. And when I say that, it's really the same. It's always agreement. It's always agreement. And what it's talking about is it can be an agreement between two people. It can be an agreement between realms, which typically has to happen anyway. Because even if we are both in agreement in the natural realm, that typically happened in the spirit as well, right? We don't do anything one dimensional. And I think that's one thing I've learned more than I've seen anything else, between my dreams, between visions, between visitations. And I just have been like, oh my goodness, nothing is happening one-sided. Anything happening on one side is not lasting. And so, agreement is very, very important. So what is the real 11:11? The real 11:11 is the law of agreement. And I'm going to take you into, do a little bit of scripture, and then we're going to talk about a couple things. So what is the law of agreement? And I actually heard somebody talk about this when I was going through it. And they didn't talk about it from a scriptural perspective. They just said, hey, the law of agreement. And I know the law of agreement, per se, because I know what the scripture says. And it's this, it's Matthew 18:19. It says, again, I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. That is, in essence, the law of agreement. We minimize it, but that's exactly what it is. And I never knew how true it was until the past year, because I came up under witchcraft attack. And I'm going to share that testimony later. I'm not out of it. I'm still battling it. But again, I understand that I'm in the furnace of affliction. Um, the Father has helped me to understand you're not anywhere that I don't want you to be at this moment, but these are things you have to learn. These are things you have to see. Um, so that you can become what it is that I'm creating you to be, right? And so we know, like gold and all those things have to go through fire. They have to be formed, they have to be molded, and they have to be purified. And so do we. So do we. And so let's talk about it. So for agreement, we think about I think some of the occult people have that statement, as above so below, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We want it to just to appear in both realms. If you think about the prayer that the Most High told us to pray, or that Jesus told us to pray, he said to pray that the Father's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What does that mean? That means it will be coming into agreement, right? If both realms are looking the same, then we're in agreement. And one of the things I struggled with when I was reading it was the concept of, well, why would you do it, right? And the reason I say that is because I may have to back up a little bit. I actually came up under witchcraft attack, and it was the craziest thing I ever dealt with. I don't know exactly when it started, because when I think back on it, I've been through a lot of different things in my life that now I realize were never just what they look like. There was always a spiritual force behind them. But I'll talk about when I began to know it was I started breaking out in rashes, and that was in 2022. And it was just so weird because I've never had skin problems. I've never had eczema. I've never had allergies. My health has always been great. And all of a sudden, I'm just breaking out all over my arms. I would wake up in the morning and I would have massive rashes like on the inside of my thigh. And I was like, what is going on? And so, and I've always been a big proponent of healing. So it was really strange to me, and I started going back and forth to doctors. I'm putting calamine lotion on it. I'm Benadryl. It would go away for a few days, and then it would just come right back. And then I got it to go away. I went to the doctor. They gave me 3 or 4 different medicines because they couldn't quite figure out what it was either. And of course, they did skin checks and let's see, do you have scabies and do you have, this and scraping and just all types of things, right? And all types of lab work. And they couldn't find anything. And so it went away because I got on some steroids. The steroids helped it. And I got some steroid cream and it went away. And I thought to myself, gosh, that was so weird. That was like April of 2022. And I didn't think too much of it. And then maybe around like June, it was June, I have pictures. Because every time it would happen, I would take a picture and send it to my daughter. Like, what is going on with me? And so I think it was around June, it came back. And it was worse this time. But it was always like, it wasn't like I was outside doing anything abnormal, right? I've always been big. I like to work in the garden, but I woke up one morning and my entire, I think it was my right thigh, was covered in what just looked like something. I don't even know. It was a rash, but it covered my entire thigh. Like, it was awful. And my right arm, right? It was always for some reason on the right side of my body. It was strange. My right arm was covered in a rash, and I'm just like, what in the world? And so I was like, so I ran to the doctor again. Went through the same process, took a little bit longer this time, right, for it to go away. And I still did not ask the Most High what was wrong. I was just thinking, I must be allergic to something. And everybody around me was saying that, you must be allergic. I had just bought a new house maybe about 7 or 8 months prior. So everybody was like, oh, girl, you're just allergic and you must have run into something. And I was like, but what? Like, again, I'm not doing anything different. I was doing yard work, planting flowers. I've been doing that for years. So no change. But again, I had a new house, and my brother and everybody was like, maybe something's in your garden. I'm like, there's nothing in the garden. I mean, there's hostas, right? So anyway, I went through that. Third time it happened, it was around September. And this time it was like really bad. It was like on my stomach, it was on my arms, and I'm like, what is going on? And what I began to realize was the more I tried to fix it, the worse it would get, right? And so finally, after many tears and again more doctors and just trying to figure out what is wrong with me, I I asked the Most High. I was praying and I went on a fast because, He had said to me, "You need to fast," and I said, "Okay." So I started fasting. Now, mind you, I didn't know at the time. I was one of the things that I've been doing is really getting back to Bible feast days. So I don't do what I consider to be pagan holidays. I don't do Christmas. I don't do Easter. I only celebrate the feast days that are in the Bible. But I was still in process at the time. So I had never celebrated Rosh Hashanah or anything like that. And so roughly like the day that he said, you need to fast today. And I was like, okay. And so I started fasting. Well, then I started Googling things online, and I happened to run across the fact that I think it was the very first day of Rosh Hashanah. And I saw some different things. And so it was like perfect. Like I was supposed to be doing some spiritual things at that time, but I just didn't know it. And it so happened that he began to communicate with me at that time. So I started fasting. And he says to me, "You're under witchcraft attack." And I said, "What?" To say the least. What do you mean? What kind of witchcraft attack? Who? And he said to me, "Remember your dreams." And I was thinking, and I said, well, I was going back through the dreams. I had gotten to the point, because I'm a dreamer, and I had written some things down. And he said, who do you see in your dreams? And I thought about it, and I was like, oh, I always see this one person. They're always attacking me, but I never thought much of it. I thought it was weird, right? I didn't think we had a bad connection or anything. And so he just brought a couple things to my remembrance. How in the dreams, the person was always trying to touch me. I'd had a dream about the person. And initially, the person was sitting in a church pew, and I was sitting beside her, like the old wooden church pews. And I saw her. She kept trying to touch my stomach, kept trying to touch me. And in the dream, I kept saying, "Stop touching me. Woody, stop," So I would get up and I would move. And I woke up thinking, that was weird. Why is she trying to touch me? And so those continue. But again, I just didn't think much of it. So time goes on, like I said, and here we are. And he said that that person is doing witchcraft on you. And I was like, still, I will say this, and it's my own fault. It's foolish for God to tell you something and for you to doubt it. It's foolish because sometimes I think that you think you know someone, and you think, I don't think that person would do that. Like, well, so much for what you think you know, right? And so time went by. I fasted. When I got off the fast, it broke. And I didn't have that particular attack again for a while. But I had been dealing with other things. I had been going through, hair fall. At one point, like I had a whole spot where it just fell out, and I couldn't even understand. I was like, where did the hair even go? Like, what even happened? Just so many different things. And more time went on, and I'm getting closer and closer to God. I'm getting closer and closer, but not just because I love him, of course I do, but because my life was getting crazier and crazier. It just seemed like things were going really nuts, and I'm not going to go into everything today, but I'll share with you that it was just a lot of really crazy stuff. And so more time goes on, and I'm going to try to bring it current. So I would say around February of 2023. Now, mind you, in January, I had started doing a crazy amount of fasting because, again, I was going through so much stuff. And I was like, gosh, my hair is coming out and I'm breaking out in these rashes and I don't understand what's going on. And wow, what kind of witchcraft? And trying to make sense of it and trying to live my life. And do everything all at the same time and trying to be obedient um, to what I felt he had told me to do. Um, and things were just getting crazier and crazier. So around February 2023, I start seeing 1111 all the time. And I don't mean sometimes, I mean like all the time. Like I'm driving down the street and it's on clocks. I come home and my coffee machine had been unplugged because we had a power outage and it's flashing 1111 all day long. Like, and I was like, how come it never changes? It's just all day. That's weird, right? So then I would notice that, I would have, one person that would call me and the person always called at 11:11. And I was like, that is so strange. Now, mind you, this was a person I was interceding for. And so it was just, really weird. But I just began to see this number all the time. And it was a little weird, but I couldn't do anything but study it, hence some of the videos. And then it seemed like it kind of slowed down for a while. And then it came back with a vengeance. It was like everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And again, I'm not an angel number person. I don't believe in it, but I know I'm not crazy. And I know that it's not possible for me to, I'm like, what is going on? So long story short, we bring it a little bit forward. I started fasting this past fall. I'm going to get back to the slide in a minute. Started fasting this past fall because my life literally fell apart. It literally fell apart. My children went into a form of, my son went through something like almost like a demonic possession. He, not that you could see him, like not like, levitating type stuff, but just like so overwhelmed and so possessed with spirits in his mind that he was like screaming and yelling all the time that he was gonna die and I'm gonna kill myself and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And I'm just like, he had struggled with depression in the past. And we had gone through many different things, but never this. It was like all of a sudden, it was like he was manifesting like, I don't know, 20, 30 different demonic spirits. And I could tell just by the things he was saying. And so I got to the point where I was just in tears. I was just like, I don't even know, what is he saying? Like, what kind of stuff is coming out of his mouth? And so, and then my daughter, suddenly I had a dream about my daughter. And in this dream, I saw, it looked like a white, so this is what it looked like. And this is what I started to see when they began to put evil altars up against me. I didn't know anything. The Most High told me. I dreamed that my daughter, okay, let me go back. You know how if you have your phone and you have like your iPhone and you don't put an image on a name, that white, like no face type thing that's there. I started having some dreams about these types of figures, but they would be talking to me, hey, and I had a dream where one of them said, I'm going to take your daughter. And in the dream, I said, no, you're not. And it said, I am going to take your daughter. And it was said, I'm going to marry her and I'm going to be with her. And in the dream, for some reason, this figure, I sensed that he was married or something. And I said, no, you're not going to take my daughter. So we're going back and forth. And he walks away. And at the end of the dream, I'm trying to find my daughter. And I'm like, hey, there's something trying to find you. There's a man or something that wants to be with you. And I already told him that he can't have access to you. And in the dream, she's just like, just looking at me. And so then that goes away. And then about a week goes by and I have another dream. And in this dream, I get bitten by a snake. This huge snake bites me. And I wake up and I'm thinking, that's weird. Because again, I live in a rural area. I was like, let me go make sure we don't have any snakes in the yard. And I feel so stupid thinking about it because I was taking everything so literal. And I really was worried about my daughter. I thought she was seeing somebody. I was like, what in the world was that? And then I had another dream with her in it where we were all outside, me and all my relatives. We were at my house and we were outside doing stuff in the yard. And this huge, looks like a python, like something off the movie Anaconda, back with Jennifer Lopez, this huge anaconda looking thing is chasing us around the yard and we're all running. And all of us make it into the house. But when we got in the house, my daughter, the same daughter, in the dream, I said, where is she? And I was asking everybody, where is she? Where is she? And no one knew where she was. And I said, oh my God, I don't think she made it in the house. That means she's still outside with the snake. And that was the end of the dream. Within about a week of that, my daughter changed completely. She wasn't herself. She just, like, she disappeared. She would never look at me. She stopped talking to me completely. Um, she wore sunshades all day long, even in the house. But she would never eat with us. She just completely became something different. She went into her bedroom. She would come in the house and she would go straight to her room with her sunglasses on, no matter what time of the day it was. And she would, in her room, she put up darkening curtains and she never turned on the lights, ever. And I was horrified. So I'm like, ask what's going on. And she won't respond. Not only that, we used to talk on the phone every morning when she was going to work. And then suddenly she stopped responding to my calls. Now, mind, we live in the same house. She stops responding to my calls. She stops responding to texts. Um, and all she would say is, I would text her and say, why are you ignoring me? She wouldn't respond. And so finally, one time she texted me back. She said, I just want to be alone. And I was like, well, why? Like, what happened? And she said, I would prefer that you just leave me alone. Okay. So by this time, literally, things are just going crazy. In the middle of this, I had a dream that someone that I knew, I had gone into my place of work and I saw this person sitting in my desk, and she had on the same dress that I had on. And I remember thinking, it wasn't even an expensive dress. Like, it was something I bought from Walmart. Just, you're like, oh, that's cheap. I can wear that around the house or whatever, or to the pool or something. And I walk into work. She's got on this cheap dress that I bought for myself from Walmart. And I have on the exact same dress. But she has the same dress on with a different color. So let's just say that I have on a dress and it's blue and white. And she's got on my same exact dress, but it's black and white. But she's sitting in my seat at my desk. And I was like, in the dream, I remember thinking, why is she over here? This isn't where she sits. And why are we wearing the same dress? And so now I had this dream in April. I actually had it the night of Passover. And I knew God was revealing something to me. I just didn't know what he was revealing. And so now, mind you, before this, I had been going through all types of crazy stuff, sicknesses, illness, things that I never, ever dealt with, ever. And so I had this dream and I couldn't understand it. I was like, so weird. So I'm just taking everything in stride, but my life is falling apart. Falling apart. And then we go on vacation in August of 24. And for some reason, on vacation, it seemed like my dreams became much more vivid. It almost made me wonder if they had done some type of spell over my house. Well, there was a curse placed on my house. I found that out later. And so I go out of town and my dreams are so vivid, and I'm getting like, I can understand them. I'm like, wait a minute. I see myself, being, in these places with these people talking to me that I don't recognize. It's bunches of women, but they're all up in these high places. I know they're high places because it looks like we're sitting on top of the world. The entire place is white. And they're asking me questions. Who is your daughter? What is her name? What are you going to do? Just all types of stuff. And I remember waking up and I introduced him to my daughter in the dream. Even though I had no idea who she was. And I woke up and I remember thinking, who was that? Right? I've never had a dream. It didn't even feel like a dream. It felt like, I don't know, like a visitation. It was weird. So, but it just continued to get worse. So just to kind of fast forward, because again, it's a long story. I know now it's been spanning over several years, beyond 2022. I came home from vacation because I understood that my children were under demonic attack, is what the Most High said. You're under demonic attack. You're dealing with witches. And I said, witches? I was like, it's a lot of them. It's a coven. He told me, he said, it's a coven. I said, it was lots of people, right? And so, if I go back to the dream with the person who had on my dress, in the dream, she invited me out for drinks. She was like, hey, you want to go grab a drink? And it was someone that I knew. And I said, sure. And we go out for drinks. And when we get there, I'm seated at a table with all of these people. I don't recognize any of them, but we're in a restaurant and I'm seated there, and she walks up with another person. And I noticed that every time I would dream about her, she would always have somebody else with her who seemed faceless. So I don't know if that was some type of an entity or a power or the practitioner that she was using, but it was always like that. So I'm sitting at the table and she walks up and I'm like, oh, hey, you know, and they said, and so she's like, I'm seated at the end of the seat, like, like you would be if you're the long table, Beauty and the Beast, or the Beast, or you're sitting at the end seat, like, you're the king or the queen of the table. And she comes in and there's nowhere for her to sit at the table. And so I said in the dream, I'll get up. I said, let's go find the table where we can both sit down. And there was a man at the table, like a very strong, forceful voice. And he said, no, you won't find another table. He said, you'll sit here. And I said, okay. I said, well, there's not enough room for both of us. And I said, so I guess, he said, so why don't you guys take turns? And this is how my personality is in real life. So I didn't think anything of it. I stood up and I said, okay. I said, that's fine. I was sitting here. I said, if you want to sit down first, you can sit down first. And, or first or second, however you want to look at it. And so I get up from my seat in the dream, seated at the head of this table, and she sits down in the seat. And I'm standing beside her in the dream. And the thing that was so interesting is that as I'm standing beside her, she's sitting in the seat, but she's sloppy. So she keeps flouncing and moving and just doing really, and just sloppy. And so, as she's sitting in my seat, there's a drink beside her. And in the dream, literally, she's so sloppy in the seat that the drink is spilling. It's just, all over the place. And so I stop and I pick it up and I said, hey, I'll hold your drink for you. I was like, but, if you're going to sit in a seat, you kind of need to have a little class about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, handle yourself a little better. But she still was flouncing around, and that was the end of the dream. So, of course, I wake up from that, and I'm really puzzled. Right? So, again, fast forward to months later. I go through months and months of fasting. Months and months of fasting. I'm still going through it. And one of the things that began to happen is I began to get angelic help, like literally angelic help. And I was warring in the spirit. I was fasting so much, it was like 7 or 8 months. I don't think I went more than 7 days without being on a fast, and that was maybe twice. And so that's how bad it was. And so I warring in the spirit. And I would go to sleep at night, and there would be witches coming, astral projecting into my house. I anointed everything with oil, which seemed to block them for a while. Many times, of course, they are feeding me in my dreams, trying to kill me. None of it made any sense to me because I was like, what in the world? What is going on? But, God was protecting me, and he was covering me, and he told me, I'm not going to let anything happen to you, right? And so I would always, I found a couple of books about evil altars, because when I said, what's happening to me? He said, they've got evil altars against you. It's crazy when God tells you something that you've never even heard of. Evil altars. What is an evil altar? And so, so I bought some books on evil altars, and I began to study it. I began to listen to Kevin Ewing. Because his name came up when I started researching. And I began to go through the process of tearing down evil altars, right? I still didn't quite understand them, and I still don't always understand all of it, right? I'm grabbing hold of it. And so I began to tear down these altars, the witchcraft altars, the marine witchcraft altars, because I happen to live somewhere where I've got a pond, and I was dealing with marine witchcraft as well. And that's another story I'll have to tell you. So it was like, I felt like every kind of witchcraft they could throw at me, they threw at me all at once. And it was just crazy. So in the midst of this, as I'm warring, my sight began to get extremely keen. I already was a seer, and I could hear. My sight began to be like out of this world. Like I could see in the day. I could see, just laying in bed. It's like I would just, close my eyes and I would get these very vivid images. And for a while, I thought I was just crazy. I was like, what am I seeing? Like, why do I keep getting these images? Um, and then I just began to realize I was having sight because I could fall asleep and then I would see 11:11 flash. And I was like, okay, why am I seeing 11:11? That's weird. So I'm going through one of my fasts, and as I'm going through the fast, I see myself warring and battling, fighting in my sleep, warring spirits. And there was one dream in particular where I was being led through this place, and I was warring with a sword. It was a person, I assume it was the Most High or an angel, gave me a sword in my hand, and he was leading me to different places. And every time he would lead me somewhere, I would see the prison bars. The prison bars were 11:11s. They were flashing 11:11s like flames. And he would point. And I knew the point meant take your sword and cut through that 11:11, get your stuff back. And then he would lead me to another cell, and the cells with the bars would flash 11:11, and he would point, and I would cut through it with my sword, and I would get my stuff back because I lost a lot of stuff, and so did my children. And so when I woke up from that dream, I understood. I said, so the 11:11 is taking things from me. But I also understood that I would see 11:11 when they were taking things, but I also would see 11:11 when I was getting it back. And so as I began to fast and pray, and like I said, it was months and months of fasting. If I saw 11:11, it was like within 2 to 3 days, I would see something like my son, who was going through demonic possession. He called me one day. I saw 11:11. We were fasting, and I'm laying hands on his pictures and just everything, and casting out devils and demons, and binding and loosing, and all, just in the word. And my son called me 3 days later. Now he went from, just, I can't even explain the condition. Calling me one morning, maybe afternoon, and he said, Mom. And I said, what? He said, I woke up this morning and there was light in my room. And I said, what do you mean there was light? He said, it was always dark. He said, it was always dark. He goes, I woke up this morning squinting because the light in my room was so bright and I feel lighter. He was like, something happened. He was like, I don't know what happened to me. And I knew because I had been breaking spirits of oppression off of him and depression and all the different things that they were saying was wrong with him. They had said, oh, he's schizophrenic. Oh, he's bipolar, because he had said, I hear people talking to me, telling me this and telling me I'm going to die. And I just, it was just a story. So as time went on and I saw the 11:11s, it's become a thing, right? So now I know if I go to sleep and I saw an 11:11, I know that he's letting me know you came into agreement with somebody, something, or you could be getting something back. And depending on the dream, right, I understand what he's communicating to me. But, what I also know is it's important for all of us to know that 11:11 doesn't mean make a wish. It's become such a thing because what I call it now is the 11:11 phenomenon. And I guess that's what the world is calling it. Let me say that differently. The world is calling it an 11:11 phenomenon. It is not an 11:11 phenomenon. It is a witchcraft phenomenon. What's happening, and this is what I've learned through what I've been through. The enemy doesn't have anything to give his children, right? He doesn't have anything to give them. So they take from the children of light. And the way that they take from us is through the law of agreement. And so if we look at the, look at the image I have up there, you'll understand that the law of agreement is what the enemy has been using since the beginning, because that's exactly what he used to get Adam's destiny. And I would hear about these destiny swaps, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's just never going to happen. And I just didn't believe in it. And, as I began to deal with my life falling apart, I began to realize that something similar had happened to me. Somebody was tampering with my destiny in the spirit realm. And I went to God and I said, this can't be real. Like, wow. Like, I was like, there's no scriptural foundation for this, Father. And he said, what do you think happened to Adam? And I said, What do you mean? And he said, what do you think happened to Adam? Didn't Adam have a specific role and a specific path and a specific destiny? And wasn't that taken from him? Wasn't that right? He forfeited that, right? Same with Esau. Esau had a specific path and a specific destiny. He forfeited that through agreement, right? Now, whether it was done through guile or whether it was done through stupidity, like with Esau, because I don't believe Jacob deceived him. I think Esau was stupid. But nor did God say that Jacob did him wrong. God said that Esau hated his own birthright. So, not necessarily the case with Adam, but let's look at it. So, on the right side, witchcraft, the law of agreement. Now the serpent was more crafty than any beast of the field that the Lord God had made, and he said to the woman, "Did God really say that you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" And the woman answered the serpent and said, "We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but about the tree of but about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden, God has said, you must not eat of it or touch it, or you will die." And the serpent said, "You will not surely die," right? So he modified those words. "For God knows that in the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eyes, and that it was desirable for obtaining wisdom, she took the fruit and she ate it. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So a couple things. There was a destiny change right there, because God created Adam with a very specific path. When we get into the New Testament calls Jesus the second Adam. So Jesus was a redo, right? He was a redo, right? So how did the enemy get Adam's destiny? How did he take that from him? Did he force him? Did he hold him by, by gun or knife or sword? Or did he approach him and did he get him to agree? I'm going to say Eve, because he used it on Eve and then Eve used it on Adam. He presented something to them that caused them to come out of agreement, understanding agreement is covenant. It is a form of a covenant. So they agreed with God originally. They agreed that we will not eat the tree from this fruit. We will not do this thing that, grieves the Most High. He is our Father. We will not do this thing. He has given us a rule. And then the enemy came and he presented them with another word. And that's all it took. That's all it took. Another word. And they said, oh, well, now we don't agree with God anymore. We don't agree with Yah anymore. Some of you call him Yahweh. I call him Yahuwah. We don't agree with Yahuwah the Father anymore. We agree with you, unknown serpent that just came into the garden. And so they came out of agreement with God. A lot of people don't understand this. They broke their covenant when they came out of agreement, and they came into agreement with Satan, thereby forging a covenant. And we are now operating, and this is why a lot of people don't understand, that want to blame God for a lot of things. What they don't understand is he's letting everything play out. We as man forged a covenant. That is why we have to come into covenant with him. It's why we have to accept Yahusha or Jesus or whatever you call him. I call him Yahusha HaMashiach, our Messiah. We have to form that covenant with him, coming out of that covenant that our original fathers made, right? Adam and Eve with the enemy. And kind of picking up on what Abraham did, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. And then, of course, what Yahusha did. And so understand that the law of agreement is operating in the earth right now and all the time. And so many things, the Father has been sharing with me about how we're operating in the law of agreement, and it's really not changed. The enemy is still using the same thing. They get us to come into agreement, and we do it so many different ways. But I want to point out to you because this grieved me at the beginning, was, God, why would you let that happen? Especially when the scripture says, if two of us shall agree on earth as touching anything, that the Father would do it. I was like, why would you? Why? I don't understand. Like, why? It doesn't seem fair. And one of the things that I know, if we come down to the second verse, Matthew 5:44 through 45, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father who is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust. And that is my point. There are some foundational laws. There's more than this, but I'm just going to cover a couple because I hope this will help you to understand why the kingdom of darkness can use the law of agreement and it works. Why doesn't God jump up and say, no, forget it. It's not going to work. You're not doing that, right? And he will, if we ask him, right? He will overturn it. But initially, there are laws in the earth that are just what they are, right? So when he says, the sun comes up and he makes the sun to rise on the evil and on the good, there's no differentiation in the sun that rises on them just because they made a bad choice, just because they chose another God. There's going to come a day where they're going to be held accountable and judgment is going to come. And some of it may be in this life, right? But we know there's a bigger judgment coming as well. But he didn't change it. He didn't say, because y'all sinned, I'm not going to let the sun rise up on those bad people, right? Another example would be the law of faith. And it took me, I'm not going to say years. I learned this fairly early on because I was healed from cancer as a young child, a young teenager, by faith. I didn't do anything crazy. I just stood on the word, believed it, and got anointed with oil. And it came to pass. I, had cervical cancer and had been through significant amounts of surgery as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old. And a friend of mine's mom was just like, hey, do you believe God can heal? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. This is kind of bad. And, they had told me I would never have kids. And so she prayed with me and showed me the scripture about by the stripes of Jesus we are healed. And I believed it and it came. I went back to the doctor after having several surgeries and they had no explanation as to where all the cancer went. And so, but I also had talked to other people. So my mother-in-law at that time was raised Catholic and went through a time period. She wasn't involved with God. She wasn't doing anything, but she was diagnosed with bone cancer. And she had told me that she went to the doctor and she said she just got tired of it. She said, I was going through chemo. She said, I was exhausted all the time. She said, and I just walked out and I told them, I'm not going to have cancer anymore. I'm tired. I'm done. So she just walks out of the hospital and I don't know, a few weeks later, she didn't have any more cancer. Right. And so I went to God about that early on in life. And I was like, why? How did that happen? She's not even a believer. And he said, because it's a law. Faith is a law. It's not subjective. It'll work for anybody. Right. It'll work for anybody. And I was like, he said, yeah, it's like gravity. You can be a sinner and gravity still works. Right. It doesn't change. And so the law of agreement is the same for everybody. And so when he says, hey, this is a law that you guys can use to get, what you need. And if it's two of you are in agreement, I'm good with it. It's not selective. These are foundational laws. And so, just something to think about. So one of the things I want to talk about is I want to give a couple things because I did go through a destiny exchange. The Lord has restored me. Even though I'm still walking through it, but I've gotten the dream indications. I've seen, the restoration already, even though I'm walking through it myself. But many people, like I said, are saying it's not real, and it definitely is real. But so let's talk about some of the dream symbols because I hear people talking about this sometimes, and I'm like, whew, that's scary. But one of the big things that I saw constantly was my car being stolen. I would always see my car being stolen. I was having little premonitions all the time. Like I'd be half asleep and I would see car crashes. And I said to him, my brother, I was like, I keep dreaming I'm in car crashes. I don't know why. It was all the time. Um, and so it just, none of it made any sense. I had a dream that this guy, he just walked up to me and he was like, hey, I need your car. And I was like, but why would I give you my car? He was like, I just need it. And I let this guy take my car, right? I it's been a lot of different things now, and I saw somewhere, it was like, trying to get me to crash my car, but I would somehow make it through, like attempts, but they weren't always successful. And so be mindful of some of these things, right? And it's something that the Most High has really put on my heart, is that this isn't specific to me, right? Because what's happening is the kingdom of darkness, like I said, they don't have anything. The only thing that they have, they take from us. So whatever they've got, they took it from us. They have their basic blessings, but if their blessings had been exceptional, they would never have a reason to take the blessings of another person. They would never desire the path of another person if theirs were superior. So they watch us and they can see, through stargazing and other things, but also, and I'll talk about this in a minute, social media and stuff, they have access to all of our information that we share. And that's something that, the Lord shared with me too. He said, they're shopping. They're shopping, right? There was a point in time, I come from a family, and, a lot of us do have something in our history. But my grandfather's sisters were big into some form of witchcraft, voodoo maybe. I don't know what it was. And I remember I had an aunt who actively had, started doing witchcraft, and she ended up losing her mind later, but she got into witchcraft. And what I remember is that they needed points of contact, just like we do, right? Everything operates the same. The spirit realm is a spirit realm. So when they were trying to do things, this was back in the 80s, they would try to get a photo of you, right? And they would, speak these evil things over your photos or something that belongs to you. And, I always knew that. But it was okay, because back in the 80s, there weren't a lot of photos of you floating around, now were they? But now, and this is something that he really expressed, he's like, now the reason y'all are seeing all these 1111s, the reason there's so much movement in the spirit realm is because of social media. Because they can go online and they can see you, you're posting your blessings, you just bought a house, I'm going to get a promotion. And they've got all these abilities with these demonic spirits to go in and do manipulation to your life. And you've just shared, I'm having a baby, and they're like, you think, you're not, I'm going to take this. Who are you? You said you were going to be successful. God just shared with me that I'm going to have a great life and I'm going to be rich. And you're like, oh, really? I'm going to try to figure out, can I take that from you? Because I need that for myself. And so understanding that you and your destiny are not the same thing. I had a couple dreams outside of my car where I saw like a backpack, and in my backpack, and it was it's like it's almost like I could tell in the dream that he was letting me know everything that you have, I gave you from the foundations of the world, everything that you would ever need. And so as a parent, you think about sending your kids off to school and you're just packing them up with everything. You're giving them, hey, you're going to need a sandwich. Let me give you some chips. Oh, let me get you some crayons. I just want to make sure that you don't run into anything where you don't have what you need. And that is how the love of the Father is. And so, but in my dream, I saw that they were taking these things from me, right? Taking them. And so, my blessings and the things that the Most High intended for me, someone or something or a group of people decided that they saw what I had and they wanted to take it. And so, I went through these experiences, but I wanted to share because, again, he keeps impressing upon me. Again, it's not just a me thing. He told me everything that you're going through, I'm letting you go through it. I know it's hard because I need you to talk about it, because a lot of people are going through it and they don't know why they're going through it. They don't understand what's happening. And so this is just, one talk. I don't even know if I stuck to the slide. I felt like I was a little all over the place, and I ask you forgiveness. But just pay attention to your dreams. If you're seeing issues with your car in your dreams, your car is being crashed, somebody's taking your car, maybe you're driving around in the car, but you're not the one in the driver's seat. Like things like that are red flags. Because even after I began to fast, it was never like, hey, you just got your destiny back. It was like they would always try to come back another way, right? witches are relentless. And so we as the children of light have to be just as relentless. So your shoes, I saw my shoes being taken from me. My marital destiny, I understood that that's what that was, right? The covering on my feet. And so, and that just went back and forth and back and forth. And so, and the reason, like I said, is God told me that there were misalignments in earth. It's the exact thing that he used. And a lot of people, I've seen people say that the kingdom spouse thing is a deception. I can't speak on what's deception and not deception, because some people don't know. But I'll tell you what I know because of what he told me. And what he said was, every person, Adam was the model. And so Adam was created as a all-in-one being. If you think about the word alone, it says Adam was alone. He saw that he was alone, all in one. He was alone. And God said, you know what? It's not good for him to be alone because every other creature has a mate. And he didn't go and make a separate being. He took that being out of that one being to create a partner for him. So in essence, what he did is he created two out of what was one. He made them two. And then the two shall become one again. And so it's not random. And people think it's random. And that's the deception. And that's the reason that the divorce rates are so high. It's the reason that it's just all types of foolishness. Because if we believe that we can just randomly pick our partners, and we do, but that doesn't mean that that's the one. That doesn't mean that that's the person that you came from if you're a female. It doesn't mean as a male that that's the woman that he took from you at the beginning. Because when he takes you from the foundations of the world, he takes you out of eternity, he places you into time, you find that person. That's my understanding of it. And that's how he taught it to me. That was a model. Adam was a model. And so if you are meant to be married, that person is already known. It was already designed. Marriage is a reunion, not a union. It is a rejoining. Right? So if you think about it, it talks about in Ephesians how, it's a great mystery that a man shall leave his father and mother, right, and cleave unto his wife. And he's not talking about us, but he's talking about Christ in the church, or the greater, or the assembly, whatever you want to call it, his body. And were we not with the Father before the foundations of the earth, of the world? And did he not say that whom he did foreknow, those he did also predestinate? That is what the word says. And so if he is the model and he is joining himself back to his bride, who he foreknew before the foundations of the world, then why are we different? We're not. We are bone of his bone and we are flesh of his flesh. And your husband or your wife is supposed to be bone of your bone and flesh of your flesh. And that was already decided before the foundations of the world. You were made as a pair. You were separated. You were made in eternity. You were set in time. And then you are walking and you will find each other. But because of the enemy, it's not aligned that way. And it's intentional. And you know why it's intentional? To avoid agreement. Because if he can cause us to believe that marriage is random and you can be with whoever and you can do whatever you want because life is just chaos and there's no order and there's no God, right? Because that's why the sun comes up and sets in order and in rhythm. And that's why the oceans stop at the boundaries, right? And that's why you are perfectly, fearfully and wonderfully made. That's why all the organs and the function in your body go the way that they do, because it's chaos. Or is it order? Or is it by design? So don't be deceived. I can't speak to the Kingdom Spouse movement, but I do know, because he shared this with me, that everything that happens with his people is always an indication of what's happening with him. And if he was joined with his bride before the foundations of the world, if we were with him and we were foreknown and we were predestinated and we are his bride, and he is going to be joined back to his bride. And we're getting closer to that time. Is it not possible that what we're seeing is a realignment in the earth, an agreement, because that's what's about to happen with him and his people? Because he's coming back. He's going to be rejoined with his bride. Because there is a point in time of separation. There are different things that happen. Consider it, because those are the things that I understand. And so really quickly, I'm just going to run through this list. Destiny exchanges, dream symbols, your car. If you see yourself changing seats in your dream, if you see yourself without your shoes or somebody taking your shoes, something like that, those are typically forms of destiny. Your path, your feet indicate where you're walking. Your car is a vehicle that carries you somewhere. Understanding that you and your destiny are not the same thing. Your destiny is what God gave you. It's what he intended for you. And the only reason they can separate it from you is because in the spirit realm, it's like a vehicle. It's like, oh, that's what he intended for them. But there's a way they can separate those things from you. They can't it's not taking you. It's like they're taking, just like your path. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm going to overtake her on that path. And so, I don't even think of it really as a destiny exchange, because it's not like God can be fooled, right? He can't be. He knows who you are. And he's going to restore everything back to you. All they do is tamper with it and they're envious and they're wicked. They're wicked. If you see yourself crashing your car, right? Again, different things that, the kingdom of darkness is trying to manipulate or do something to your destiny. Changing cars with someone else, that's an exchange. You don't ever want to be exchanging anything in your dreams. I've learned that. Seeing someone stealing your car, again, you don't want to see that. You're not changing seats with anybody. Someone else driving you around in your car, it means somehow you've lost control of your destiny, and somebody else is in the driver's seat. Again, witches and warlocks will do that. If you see yourself giving up your seat, see yourself barefoot, again, many times it means your marriage destiny has been tampered with or removed. They can take your marriage destiny away from you in the spirit realm. I've seen it. If you see somebody taking your husband's shoes from you in a dream, that they're trying to mess up your marriage. If you see yourself in a dream with someone wearing the same outfit as you, that's a concern. If you see someone mirroring you in a dream, it's a concern. They're trying to be you. So, and just remember this one thing. There's a lot of websites all over the place that'll tell you that your dreams are, you ate some pizza or lasagna. Oh my God. And then I dreamed I was being chased around. And, the powers that be are sorcerers. And there's going to be people that are going to challenge that, and it's okay. But, one thing the Father helped me to understand through all of the things that are happening is, show me a kingdom in the Bible that wasn't run by astrologers and magicians and sorcerers. Show me a nation other than the nation of Israel that did not consult with astrologers and sorcerers and magicians. And why do we think it has changed? And so when you're looking at all these meetings in this United Nations and you're seeing them with these shamans, it's because the world is being run by sorcery. And a lot of the things that we're dealing with right now, the social media, again, they're accessing even when you're going into your phone, can we access? You ever notice that it doesn't say, like, you ever, don't want an app to track you. That's what it is. I have an iPhone. And as I began to learn this, it was interesting to me to look at the language. It doesn't say, they don't give you the option to say, don't track me. It says, ask app not to track me. But you notice it doesn't give you back a response. Like, it doesn't say, I'm not going to track you. All you can do is ask them not to. You can't say no. They don't give you no as an option. We're living in a world run by sorcery. And so we as children of light have got to be smarter. We've got to be mindful. We have to understand. And we have to know that when we begin to see this stuff, the children of darkness, the Bible says that the kingdom of God suffers violence and the violent take it by force. Because we are still sitting around assuming everything happened to us is his will. And they are kicking down our walls, knocking down our boundaries, and taking what they want. And we're hurt and we're sick and we're crying. We're not understanding. And he wants us to know, because he loves us so much, that he has given us power and he's given us authority, and that nothing shall by any means harm us, and that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and that they can fight against us, but they will not prevail against us, for he is with us to deliver us. He wants you to know, but you got to engage and you got to get in the word. And you have to stop believing that everything that happens to you is from him. You got to get close enough to know him. You have to hear from him. And I will follow up with more later. Hopefully this was valuable. I never thought it would be an hour. But you guys have a great day. Thank you.